Chapter 1: The Courtroom of Injustice. The packed courtroom buzzed with murmurs as people found their seats, eager to witness yet another controversial ruling from Judge Harold Whitmore. His name carried weight in the city, though not the good kind. Whitmore had been presiding over cases for nearly 2 decades, and in that time, his biases had become as blatant as the grand wooden gavel on his desk. If you were white and wealthy, you could expect leniency. If you were black, brown, or poor, you were little more than an inconvenience to be dealt with swiftly and harshly. He wasn't just tough on crime, he was tough on certain people. And today, standing before his bench, were 2 young black women, Leah and Maya Carter, identical twins who, despite being restrained in handcuffs, exuded a calm confidence that felt out of place in this oppressive courtroom. The charge? Assault and resisting arrest. Judge Whitmore adjusted his glasses and scrutinized the 2 women with a smirk of superiority. He had heard the arresting officer's accounts, and to him, it sounded like the usual nonsense. 2 young black women causing trouble, acting violently, and now playing the victim. So, Whitmore began, his voice laced with mockery, "I understand you 2 ladies had quite the eventful evening." Neither Leah nor Maya responded, but their gazes remained steady. Whitmore continued, flipping through the police report. "According to this, you were attacked by a group of men outside of a bar. But somehow, miraculously, it was you who put 4 grown men in the hospital?" He let out a dry chuckle. "Do you really expect me to believe that?" Leah, the older twin by 2 minutes, took a step forward, ignoring the fact that her wrists were still bound. "We were defending ourselves." The judge scoffed. "Defending yourselves?" He shook his head. "Do you know how many times I've heard that excuse?" Maya, standing beside her sister, narrowed her eyes. "With all due respect, Your Honor, it's not an excuse. It's a fact." That set Whitmore off. His lips twisted into a scowl. "Now listen here, young lady. You don't get to come into my courtroom with that attitude. You are facing serious charges. The sooner you start showing some remorse, the better this will go for you." The audience murmured. Some shook their heads, while others smirked, knowing the judge was infamous for belittling defendants, especially those who looked like the Carter twins. Leah inhaled deeply, restraining herself. "Your Honor, we are not criminals." "Oh, I see," Whitmore sneered. "Not criminals. Just coincidentally violent." He leaned forward, staring them down. "Tell me, ladies, what exactly gave you the ability to take down 4 men? Are you claiming to be trained fighters?" His voice dripped with sarcasm. "What's next? Are you secret agents?" Leah and Maya exchanged a glance. The room quieted. Then Leah spoke. "We aren't secret agents, Your Honor," she said coolly. "But we have been trained." Chapter 2: The Weight of Their Training. A thick silence settled over the courtroom. The judge's expression faltered, if only for a second. "Trained?" Whitmore scoffed. "Trained? Trained how?" Maya tilted her head slightly, assessing the judge's arrogance with quiet amusement. "We spent 4 years in the U.S. Army." That got the courtroom's attention. A ripple of whispers spread across the audience. The judge raised an eyebrow. "Excuse me?" Leah's voice was steady. "We served in the military. 4 years, active duty. U.S. Army." Judge Whitmore's sneer faded just slightly. He glanced toward the prosecutor, who looked equally caught off guard. Maya continued, her voice calm but firm. "We trained in one of the most elite combat programs in the country. Our specialty? Hand-to-hand combat. There were audible gasps. The judge's face twitched. He was used to breaking people down in his courtroom, but something about these two women unsettled him. "I see," he said, forcing himself to sound unfazed. "And I suppose you think that justifies your violent actions?" Maya's lips curled into a smirk. "It explains them." Whitmore shifted uncomfortably. He didn't like being challenged, especially not by two young black women who weren't intimidated by his courtroom antics. Leah took a slow step forward. "One of those men grabbed my sister," she said. "We defended ourselves. The fact that they lost isn't our problem." Maya added, "We did what we were trained to do, neutralize threats." Quickly. The judge's fingers curled into a fist. He hated their composure. He hated the way the audience was now murmuring in their favor. But most of all, he hated that he hadn't seen this coming. I find this highly unusual," he stammered. "Where is the proof that you were in the army?" Leah reached into her pocket, ignoring the guards who tensed at the movement, and pulled out a small, worn leather wallet. She slid something across the table. The bailiff picked it up. His eyes widened. "Your Honor," the bailiff cleared his throat and walked over, handing the item to Judge Whitmore. Whitmore took it reluctantly and looked down. His stomach dropped. It was a United States Army ID. And it wasn't just any ID. It read, "Sergeant Leah Carter. U.S. Army. Active duty." He barely had time to react before Maya slid her own ID forward. It read, "Specialist Maya Carter. U.S. Army. Combat Engineer." The courtroom was dead silent. Whitmore swallowed hard. They had been telling the truth. Chapter 3: The Reversal. For the first time in his long career, Judge Whitmore felt something foreign: fear. The weight of the courtroom had shifted. The power dynamic, once firmly in his hands, was slipping. He could feel it. He fumbled for words. "Well, I suppose this changes things." The prosecutor, who had been grinning moments ago, now looked sickly pale. He shot up from his chair. "Your Honor, given this new information, the state moves to drop all charges." Judge Whitmore clenched his jaw. He didn't want to do this. He wanted to punish them. But he knew that if he pushed forward, he would be ridiculing Army veterans, and that wouldn't end well for him. He had no choice. With a begrudging nod, he muttered, "Case dismissed." The gavel came down. Leah and Maya smiled at each other. They had won. As they walked out of the courtroom, reporters swarmed them. Cameras flashed. A journalist shoved a mic toward Maya. "How do you feel about the judge's treatment of you?" Maya smirked. "We've faced worse." Leah added, "And we never lose." Chapter 4: The Judge's Fall. The video of Judge Whitmore's humiliation went viral overnight. By morning, civil rights groups demanded an investigation into his past rulings. By the end of the month, Judge Whitmore was forced to resign in disgrace. And the Carter twins? They didn't just walk away free. They became legends.